All right. Welcome to my blue. Today it's a very blue zone. So thank you so much for your patience. Let me just check the audio. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Come on. Test, test, test. Test, test, test. Okay, perfect. All right, let's dive right in. So here we have your chart. So this is yeah, I started doing your reading, was it Friday? But I just wasn't in the zone, and um yeah. But basically, yeah, I was saying how, in the whole sign, when you have, it's kind of the things that one of the things that I find difficult about it is, actually I need to check my internet one sec. All right, internet solved. So anyways, let's go ahead and go back to, oh, why move over here? 1 second. Okay, move this here. Okay, now share screen. So, as I was beginning to say, your Virgo rising, Virgo sun. So the question becomes, all right, um, is that a first house or a 12th house sun? In whole sign, it's the first house. In Placidus, it's the 12th house. Now, from my perspective, I would uh, favor this more. Um, I give both kind of definitions, um, but because it's 16 degrees, behind the ascendant, it would feel more like 12th house sun. It just makes more sense to me. And you know, obviously, like a first house sun, life is really, really about um identity, and it it's basically like the difference between like an Aries, like your sun in Virgo taking on like an Aries taste, or taking on um a Pisces taste. And knowing you a little bit, I would definitely say that it would be more, the Pisces 12th house energy makes more sense for my you're one of the rare clients that I have a little bit of experience talking to, and I try to avoid it, but we obviously know each other, and have talked on several occasions. Um, but regardless, I still don't know like the deep, deep dive, right? So with that said, when you have a 12th house sun, it obviously is a very spiritual placement in the sense that you are very, very deeply, you feel everything really, really deeply, right? Everything that happens um at like a kind of collective unconscious level, like you're a sponge for it. And it makes more sense as a 12th house sun because Virgo, it makes, it's like the Virgo Pisces axis that get this activated here, right? So it's also conjunct Chiron. So a lot of times what happens there with Sun conjunct Chiron, Chiron Leo, close to Regulus on my ascendant, which is interesting because like that would mean that like I'm have like a healing effect on you because I'm 28-degree rising. So I activate your Chiron, which is also like about uh hidden gifts, right? So and your Mercury's right there too. But basically, yeah, so like this is kind of like one of the only exceptions I make for break for this, right? Because um it just makes so much more sense. Sun in the 12th house. Now, aside from that, so yeah, a lot of times that can convey like a father that it's not necessarily bad. There is an opposition of Saturn though, so maybe the father was there's like a difficult karma with the father. The opposition with Saturn would speak to that as well, and maybe a father that was too hard on you, perhaps. Um, and where you felt kind of growing up that your self-expression it can make someone quite shy, but yeah. So where your self-expression can be a little bit kind of muted. Um, so in the 12th house, the person that has 12th house energies, they are like I said, like they're very, very tapped into the zeitgeist. Um, so you like your environment is really important, right? Who you surround yourself with, and um 12th house suns tend, it's very karmic, so a lot of the life purpose, would tend to be around being of service, and your sun's conjunct Chiron, so you're meant to be a healer in some sense, right? But a lot of times people who have that, they have to go through their own, pain and kind of transformative experiences. Um, but yeah, very, very sensitive individual. Very kind of always looking for the answers like within you. Very creative, but a lot of 12th housers, they like to kind of be behind the scenes, right? And yeah, so it's all about transcendence. So high spirituality, but what can happen is that um yeah, so like really transcending the material world is your kind of ultimate goal, but you're really learning about energy, right? Like throughout your life, and about because of that heightened sensitivity, you're seeing kind of how different energies have different effects on you, right? And you're very receptive to your environment and people around you, so it's a blessing and a curse. And then I said with this, the sun opposing Saturn, that is difficult, right? Because sun's in the 12th from like I said, like first or 12th, but I go with 12th. So a lot of times, the father is usually not either not like present, or just like there's something there with the father oftentimes. Sometimes it's like not even like a bad thing. It's just that the father, and it could even be like the father is very spiritual, but like a lot of times, the father didn't play, um, you know, like maybe some, like I've seen a lot of charts where the father had to like work a lot. Um, so yeah, there's like the route of service and compassion, also like arts and imagination. And the other one is like through just like a complete spiritual path, right? And those are like the three avenues for the 12th house are that can really, really help. Most people with 12th house energy, they can kind of just feel like they're going in circles, and life can be a bit chaotic, right? So you're trying to express high Virgo energy um in that way, which it's the opposite sign of Pisces, right? So it's like it's a 1 degree Virgo, so it really is like I think that the opposition with Saturn can speak to so a nature that's like um could be overly self-critical. um you see Sun opposite Saturn, and it's really like important to, boundaries are a word that, um, a term, a word, whatever, it's very, very important to have very strong and solid boundaries with different environments, different people, because they and just to like meditate and really get deep into your own inner world, because you I'm sure you saw my post not too long, was it this week or last week, about like it was like a tweet about like the Neptunian person, how they really have to be careful around about who they kind of let in their field, right? In their auric field. And that totally relates to you because um, that's just the nature of it, is that it's very sponge-like. So um, with that opposition also, a lot of times it could be like a father, or just kind of like kind of early, kind of like the person can have sort of like a almost like militant, like just like this need for perfection, right? And like they can be so hard on themselves and think that they like, this is a big thing with Virgo, is like I always say, it's like Virgo, for people who have Virgo, like you have double Virgo, they can think that they're like way worse than other people and have like this like inferiority complex, when really it's not how it is at all. um and yeah, they can really be, when the 12th house, it creates someone who can kind of like almost like implode in a sense, right? Because they just like, so it's like really important to kind of like learn to see reality in a true manner, right? To not see it, because there's usually um a filter through which you see it through that doesn't necessarily reflect truth, right? And that's why, as I was saying earlier, a lot of 12th house people, um, when they do take a very spiritual path, or a path of service, they start to, it really opens them up, right? And they kind of like, karmically, what it does is that it like opens them up, and it's not like just about like feeling useful, but like they really find like solace, and find themselves like in the act, especially with a Chiron on your sun, right? Any planet on your sun, it's gonna really be a focal point of your identity. So, your identity is a healer. Um, so basically, have to get past. So with the Chiron and Leo, that's the ultimate. So we're already seeing a theme here, right? Um, so with the opposition, that's very, very much like, with the opposition of Sun and Saturn, um, and Saturn opposes, squares the moon, so it's a T square, and opposes Mercury too. So Saturn, in your Saturn return is what? It's like just finished, or it's in full swing right now, right? So um this period of time right now is so important for you, because your first 30 years, someone who has a lot of Saturn or Capricorn in their chart, but yeah, just like Saturn aspecting their sun and their moon, that is just so massive. Like, because on an emotional level, when you have a Saturn square moon, your moon is in Scorpio, right? So you already feel super, super deeply. Um, and Saturn, that could speak to something with the mother. And maybe it's from both parents, where they just like had like massive expectations, and that's shown in your sun square moon. Because oftentimes people like myself who have sun square moon, their parents divorced, and if they didn't divorce, they had like a silent divorce, or like there's different cultural variations. But basically, and if they're still together, it's like their worldviews are so different. So if I ask you like write a paragraph, like what's the biggest things you've learned from your mom and from your dad, like not things you've learned, but like energies you've kind of taken in. um they're just completely different. So yeah, it's rough. And during the Saturn return, what happens is that, because Saturn is a planet of karma, right? Um, so yeah, Saturn is a planet of karma. You A lot of these energies that used to kind of really, really kind of prickle you down and pin you down and keep you in this like difficult place, right? They start to kind of leave you. So for the Saturnian person, the Saturn return is just like, it's so faded, like what happens in this year, even joining me, um, in the group, and just like overall, there's just like lots of like faded things that happen that help the person move towards um, their highest expression with the North Node in Sagittarius, right? And so for you, um, wisdom, but also finding the right balance of masculine and feminine, the right balance of like inner work and or inner work slash inner world and outer world, and outer work, right? Like these are huge themes. Um, Now also Sun squares the nodes, and the Moon is conjunct the North Node, different signs still. So that skip step karmically with the Sun squared nodes is like literally like the hero's journey. Like the person really feels like they really have to get it right this time. Like like um they're here for a big, big purpose. And um a big part of kind of their individuality. So as a Scorpio moon, we speak about individuality, right? Um, you know, the Scorpio moon person, especially you have a Hades moon with Pluto conjunct moon, right? And it's a 29-degree Scorpio moon. So it's a very advanced Scorpio energy, right? And so it's kind of like you're at this very critical stage in the soul development. And it can feel very, very heavy, right? It can feel very, very heavy. Beautiful kombucha. It can feel very, very heavy. And the way I look at that is that I think, especially in Scorpio, um, you know, karma and fate, especially with your parents and just all the stuff that kind of happened to you early on, it's very important to look at your life and really, really, like, you could do exercise on it or whatever, but like because people who have charts like this, oftentimes I'll talk to them and there'll be this like these moments maybe from like early in life that brought them lots of shame, right? Especially with Pluto on your moon, it could be something passed down where, like, for example, you take on your mother's darkness, your mother's undealt with energy, and it's on Serpentis too, so it can add even more of like a scorpionic intensity to it. So, um, it's really like extremely like it can be very, very dark, but it's very transformative, you know? It's very, very it's a chart that is literally like pushing you, and the way everything was for you early on, it was meant to be hard, you know? It was meant to be hard so that you could um get pushed into a direction of spiritual growth. So yeah, there's tons of indicators of like, I don't know if I want to call it trauma, but like just a real difficult upbringing. It could in um you know it could have been more on like a psychological, um spiritual, kind of that type of level than like physical. But yeah, I mean, overall, like the sun square moon, it's in, yeah, they're in signs that aren't, um that aren't square each other. Because Scorpio and Virgo, it's like a good, it's a sextile, but it's still a square by degree. And because they're both cusps, right? So your sun's on the cusp of Leo and Virgo, and then your moon, here that's me, is on the cusp of Scorpio and Sag. So, but at the same time, the 29 degree energy, um, there's some real feeling karmically of like this is the lifetime, this is the special lifetime. Um, there's like a lot riding on this, and that's shown more by that aspect I was just speaking to, the sun square moon, or sun square nodes, right? Because with the nodes in Sagittarius, the North Node in Sagittarius, South Node in Gemini, there's a tendency to, in some respects, I would say like it's on your midheaven, so not do enough inner work, um, and be too focused on kind of like the the let's call it the career life, or like the outer world life. Um, what's it? A South Node Gemini person can be very much like change it can be difficult, right? So like change, like big changes and taking big risks. But the thing is that your goal with the fourth house North Node is to really um travel, right? And travel physically or metaphorically. So that, and also it's on the IC, so it could also have something to do with your lineage, right? And especially with the moon conjunct Scorpio, I'm thinking like maybe you're the one in your family who's really meant to break some type of like generational, um not necessarily a curse, but something that's been passed on from generation to generation. It could be small things, energetic tendencies. And I would really look, like, especially the 12th houser, right? I would really, really look um at what ways you're holding, like what energies and even negative emotions, tendencies you're holding on to from each parent that aren't necessarily yours, right? So yeah, being a Virgo with the square, it's you're really here to resolve like the unresolved past life material to your core existence, right? The core nature of your individuality, personal meaning. It's very much like the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. Um, and it's what happens, especially the 12th house, is that you have to kind of keep this personal vision, um, and keep riding that path, right? That's based on your personal vision, even if it's in conflict with others around you and what they think you should be doing with your life. Um, so it can feel, there can be some isolation, but really it's like in past lives there's been a challenge for you to individuate, for you to really find who you are, right? Because with the Gemini midheaven, it could be where you focus so much on your outer world, that the outer world that you didn't come within enough. So that's why karmically, you know you have the 12th house in Placidus, right? And the Scorpio moon conjunct Pluto, because those two energies are going to push you into yourself. 12th house sun people, they tend to be very, very introverted. And you know, the Virgo rising on top of that, with the opposition from Saturn to the T square, right? Which is so Saturn's here. It squares the moon, right? You see that? and then the moon squares the sun. So it shoots out at 29 Taurus. It's like a bow and arrow. So that is like your ninth house, right? Which is literally your north node, because Sagittarius equals your ninth is the sign that is the ninth house equals Sag, right? Eighth house is Scorpio. They go in order like that, right? Like there's a linkage to them. So you see the synchronicity is that to resolve the way, it's very simple for me, the way you resolve, these difficult Saturn aspects, right, is through it's through, and it's Taurus, but the ninth house part is really what gets to me. Well, both of them do, because it's through being able to like really be grounded in yourself and in your own kind of values and what you care about, as opposed to like what society and parents, family, tradition, all that tells you, and create your own unique philosophies that enable you to feel very secure within yourself, and very, very proud and very happy. And also, mainly, what it's saying is that um, because of all this, right? And you add this, the North Node is in Sagittarius. You're here to find higher meaning, right? Because Gemini is like the journalist, right? So the South Node Gemini, it's like the journalist that goes and gets lots of information, but Sag is the person that takes all that info and forms grand philosophies with it, right? The philosophies that you live your life based off of. So the North Node and Sag person is a natural adventurer. There's someone who's meant, and because I see a lot of that adventuring is like within the own home, within the own self. But you're here to really gain a deeper worldview, and through taking these risks, right? But whether it's traveling to who knows where, and um, joining, whatever group, or really just enabling yourself to open up to tons of different ways of seeing the world from different perspectives, and having friends from different nationalities, getting away from what's just known to you, right? That is how, and it can be difficult. A lot of people with that, they I know you live, uh I'm not sure yeah, I think you still live where you grew up, right? So that's the most people who have this placement, um I'm not saying that you have to move, um but like being away from home can be like a huge growth, but like um it's not a necessity, right? But it's something that feels very uncomfortable, but that feeling, that uncomfortable feeling is quite literally um the south node, right? And being stuck in your south node in Gemini would be, taking, like taking the kind of the career path that's kind of given to you, and really you are a natural healer and spiritual person. So um yeah, so the T square, the resolution, like I said, it shoots out over here. Like it shoots out, boom, over here. And yeah, so just the more you can expose yourself to, and another thing is that there can be a tendency like to start so many things but not finish any. So it's advantageous, especially with the midheaven. I was literally just gonna think. I even like had that in my mind, but I was like, I was like, she definitely has like a Gemini midheaven. But people who have Gemini midheaven, it's very common for them to have career changes, or at least just like massive changes in terms of like what they're doing for a living, or like what their dharma is, it's not just career, it's like life purpose, right? So, I've worked with tons of people who have this, who like at a certain age, especially because your Saturn return is it's so karmic, right? It's like you really like discover who you are like you're discovering right now. Um, because like with and a lot of people when they have this, they can like embark in new studies, like they'll truly like find something they really, really care about, and then they'll just switch up. And there's no shame in that, you know? I know everyone has like their own constraints and stuff economically and whatnot, but um the Gemini midheaven person, especially the South Node there, can be an expert when it comes to having like the money maker, but then also the passion, and eventually trying to make it so that passion becomes the money maker. And with Uranus in the fifth, with Neptune in the fifth, that puts that even further, right? Um, that makes someone very, very creative, and someone who probably has more unusual hobbies. Who and with I love Neptune the fifth because I think that you know um you're able to just like when you create and when you're allowing yourself to just let go, which is hard for Virgo, right? To just let go, and it takes meditation or whatever it is to kind of work through like those different voices in your head that tell you what you can and can't do. You can get like downloads, like Uranus is like downloads and just all this like woof, like antennas, like when you're just allowing yourself to just live and create, and just be a kid, just like allow yourself to be a child. Not very nice. So this is interesting because it goes back to your Chiron. Now Chiron is also conjunct Mercury, which is difficult, right? And Mercury is very, lots of difficult aspects. It is, opposite Saturn and square Pluto, and then conjunct Chiron. That's three difficult ones for Mercury, and it's in the 12th. So, but Chiron, so Chiron in Leo represents the person who has a lot of issues. Like they weren't able to like be a child, and um it's almost like it's very in the 12th house, very deeply buried, deeply buried wounds. And a lot of times it has to do with with boundaries and people kind of infracting, or just like kind of overriding your boundaries. So there can be some overwhelming pain that needs to be explored, but also wouldn't it no, it would not. That square. Well, some use like a yeah. I think that would work. Yeah, I mean that's only 10 degrees. Yeah, so it also squares your nodes. Um, so that square would speak more to just wounding. Yeah, just like the wounds you have in this lifetime are very, very karmic, coming from the past life. So there's past life trauma, past life wounding that's deeply buried. So like the more like it can make someone a spiritual healer because they're working so hard and trying to figure out you know what caused all this, right? So in Leo, it can create someone who's afraid of having fun and afraid of letting themselves go and being creative, which is very common for Virgo people, right? Um, and with the sun opposite Saturn, that's very, that it just clicks. Your chart is clicking together like absolutely perfectly, by the way. So it's like, prevented someone who's prevented from expressing themselves as a young child, fears of inadequacy, um, and so they need to learn, like do inner child work, and learn to let themselves go in certain ways. Um, that's the big part. And then it's also conjunct, Mercury. So, Mercury and Leo in the 12th house, it would make someone quite shy, um, and Sun, right? So it's like, um, there could have been like an issue with like early education. Is it retrograde in Mercury? No. Like early communication, early education could have, there can be lots of pain there. A lot of people with this, like, they believe that there's something wrong with them, with like their way of thinking, or that they weren't smart, especially as a Virgo perfectionist, right? And it's not the truth. Um, this makes someone who learns better from experience than um than anything, like trial and error, and it creates a major empath, right? Deep intuition, sensitivity, and a great listener. A great listener who can really take in and understand the pain of other people. Not take it. Well, the key is to not take it in as your own, which is the difficulty of the placement, right? Um, so you're definitely someone that people come to with that deep Scorpio moon, right? Which is so understanding, of all of the potential, you know, negatives that humans can have, right? Um, so, but it's also like like a very understanding energy, but it's also, the Scorpio 20-degree moon is also like someone who, um, it's someone who's kind of seen it all, who's felt it all. Um, so, you know, um, it's called an anaretic degree, by the way, and it creates a lot of fate in your life, right? So there is some similarities to kind of the nodes. Um, it's the fate degree, right? So there's lots of fate with you in your mother and the family you're in your early nurturing and how that was, right? Because there could be lots of crisis with that, right? A mother who's like overly involved, not giving enough freedom. Um, so yeah. So yeah, there can be like lots of like, it's not like that 29 degrees is like always crises and trouble. But it can definitely bring difficult experiences, especially early in life. But those are setting that person up for, um, you know, being a healer in their life. They're here to be a healer in some way, right? So with the moon, um, once again, mother issues, also issues of affection, being in touch with your emotions, right? Lots of like relations, once again, to like your family and your roots and the ancestors, the woman in the family. Um, so yeah. So yeah, there's so much fate with 20 degrees in all kinds of astrology, right? Like, um, I remember reading that series, the asteroid was found when the moon was at 29 something, and um Berlin Wall, I think, fell down. Was at 29 Pisces, or yeah, something like that, right? So there's lots of fate in the emotional life. Um, and you can look at like a list of like very, very prominent people who had 29-degree, lots of artists and kind of like people who just, stood out, who had that kind of 29-degree energy, right? Um, but with the conjunction with Pluto, it is never easy. Um, well, it's not never easy. It's just it starts out really, really difficult. Um, so it really becomes like the soul planet, right? Because it's like the most mature in natural energy for you. Um, and you have like this great mission linked to it. So you're a natural born healer. You really are. Um, And with the Virgo, what can happen is, I was saying earlier how Virgo people, I didn't get to show it, but like they can be here while other people are here, but they'll think they're here, and other people, they'll think other people are here. So it's really about learning to see things clearly, right? Um, so yeah. The fact that it's in the third, I think it indicates kind of in this lifetime being like the like lots of fated endings around a certain way of feeling about yourself. Um, and you're here to free yourself from the shackles, right? And the best way to do that is through broadening your horizons, broadening your worldview, travel, right? But also, any Scorpio moon is going to have to go truly into that death, rebirth, transformation. They're going to feel on an emotional, intuitive level like they've lived many lifetimes within one. So it's about like accepting those challenges, right? Um, as you know about Scorpio moons, it's difficult because the moods can swing back and forth. Um, and you have what I have, which is moon square Mercury, which can make someone, quite indecisive, right? Where you're like, you can spend, especially with your Libra placements, right? Mars and Libra, right? Yeah, so you can spend too much time like weighing the pros and cons, and you have to watch out in partnerships because some people with that, they'll go with like narcissistic type partners, right? Um, because those people can make the decisions easier. So, yeah, it's really about like yeah, learning to compromise and developing that understanding and that inner dialogue, that inner knowledge, and having those core values, and you act based on those core values, right? Because like basically like the feelings, the moon, are at odds with the logical part of the brain. So, but with that said, one's in the 12th, and one, the Mercury is in the 12th house. So, that does add like a spiritual component that does kind of it will make that square less difficult, but still, because like Scorpios is eighth house, 12th house is Pisces, eighth house Scorpio. Yeah, so it's like there is some, because like the Mercury in the 12th, right, conjunct Chiron, it's like there is a need to heal, like I said, to heal that part of you that like not only feels unworthy of fun and of letting themselves go and showing their true personality. So it's about like, like very shy usually, but like Mercury in Leo wants to be unleashed. So um in the 12th house, it can be difficult for you to know like what's your thought and what's someone else's. So you have to like, and it gives like a very strong imagination and psychic abilities a lot of the time. Um and Leo, Mercury, they tend to have fun learning. Sometimes they can be know-it-alls, but like, they like the fact that that that's aspected by, but it will definitely give some fixed energy when you're starting to learn something that you really want to learn about, right? But the 12th house nature means kind of pushes it to where it's like it has to really matter to you on a deep level, or you'll just kind of be like, ugh. And the opposition of Saturn is like 0.35 between Mercury and Saturn. And that just speaks to like that difficulty with self-expression, you know, and that critical nature of the father, that sometimes like the father like judged the kid, whether it was like conscious or unconscious, as being less intelligent, or maybe they had siblings that were favored. um so yeah, as an adult, you can have trouble kind of believing in yourself, in your ability to really communicate and kind of stand up for your own beliefs. um and then yeah, with the T square, there's obviously like there's two T-squares, right? Because there's the Mercury one and there's one where the sun's there. So it's like you're healing your identity in the same way as you're healing your your ability to kind of speak out and articulate yourself, right? And be heard, your throat chakra. So with Pluto, Mercury square Pluto is difficult, right? Because um it can create like obsessive thoughts, which it can make it like it can make it very difficult to kind of like think positively, um and overall, um you become very like your brain and all that becomes very very in touch with like the underworld, right? Which is obviously something you know well with the Hades moon. But I think this could have contributed to some of like the early childhood stuff because Mercury square Pluto, um it makes someone like so deep and so profound. um so and anything that happened like early in the life, like a crisis in the family, it heavily like anything or any experiences like the darker side of humanity, um those are common, right? But like they have a huge influence on how that person views the world, as in like the root chakra, like is it safe, right? Is the world a safe place for me to explore and for me to take risks? So there's tons of energetic healing that needs to take place with the 12th house Chiron. Now besides that, it makes that person very subject to criticism, and a lot of times they have very very intense kind of interactions with others. So sometimes being a 12th house Mercury, they can just shut it down because they're like, I don't want to deal with this. Um, Sometimes there can be, yeah. So it can kind of like attract like very strongly opinionated people. Like maybe that's kind of how your father or mother were or are. Um, and what can happen is that the person can associate themselves and their identity so much with their thoughts and their opinions that they can defend them at any length, right? But with that said, it definitely is good for just having that probing, deep mind, street smart, intuition, and someone who like researches the things that they believe in, so they naturally kind of know the truth. And I've seen, you reply to several of my stories on my private Instagram, um, where you have this very open mind. You're not just like set on just like this is what it is. Um, so you're always willing to kind of like research more and not just shut down. Like you saw my recent posts about my prediction of the world, how like most comments were good, but then there's a few just like people who just focus on like one little sentence. So the thing is, it's like learning how to communicate your ideas can lead to conflict, right? Some people who have this, I wouldn't see this in your chart, can be like dictatorial, um, and kind of just like, boom, this is how it is. But also, leaning into that Libra energy, which is all about diplomacy, um, is very helpful. And I just think your chart is like literally like a perfect chart for like someone working in psychology, counseling, coach, whatever, someone who's working with people, right? Um, And another thing with that is that your ideas and your opinions, they go through these massive transformations also, right? Through your interactions with the world, the trial and error, and just research. So it's really, it's not necessarily bad, but the obsessive thought part can be very difficult. That's why, really leaning into like the earth energy of Virgo, of being grounded, is so important. Um, So yeah, the sun, um, Chiron, that's definitely like early wounding, which does make you, you know, like I said, Chiron, your sun, you're a healer. Your identity is a healer. Um, but yeah, um, and it really does push back that ability to feel like you can, like, it can create lots of shame and just here, like, so it's really important, like, to do the work needed to kind of separate yourself from that, right? And one thing that can be difficult for someone with a chart like yours is like, let's say you like were working in psychology or astrology or something where you might have imposter syndrome where you think that, like, for example, like what I do, like, you can never do it or something like that, but it's not true. Virgos are very, very good once they get past that self-limiting belief at at taking the steps, knowing the steps that it's going to take for them to get to where they need to get, right? um Excuse me. So having these, the car and the sun, that early pain gives you that gift of being able to be so sensitive to other people's pain, right? That deep compassion, that's a gift, right? And you've had to work hard to have all these gifts. So now it's like time to cash them in. And when you take risks, right, with the North Node and Sag, you're rewarded by God when you take risks, right? Especially in a chart like this. Um, so yeah, that deep compassion. Um, there's also like the need to like take care of yourself because you can really, like, it can be difficult. Let's say, yeah, like working in one of these fields, like, yeah, you could like a lot of people like will say this type of thing, but I can see this in your chart really playing out, is where it's like it's too much, like because like they need to learn how to, like, let's say you're dealing with a client in a hypothetical career that has all this pain, all this and that. It's being able to sit anchored in spirit, anchored in the knowledge that everything happens for a reason, and still have compassion, but not allow that person's deep sadness to enter into your field, which takes practice, right? Meditation. But like overall, I think just learning, just awareness, even this reading, awareness. Sagittarius is like always looking for more wisdom, and that's what you should be doing. And the more avenues you take, like I already told you, it's like not, you know, uh, try, like it's better to, like, in the grand scheme of things, like once you figure it out, to focus on like, one or two areas and really go in. But it's not bad to just like try a lot, at the same time, and just like and kind of like but when it becomes a detriment when it's like, you have done that to the point to where you're not able to focus on something, right? So yeah, overall, super interesting all this. So yeah, the sun square moon is really difficult. I had that, so I talked about that already, right? Didn't it? Like just like like it's that real inner conflict. Um, but because they're in signs that sextile, I don't think it would be as difficult. I just think it would speak to like the parents' energy. Maybe they didn't agree on how to bring you up. And it's the challenge is to really trust your feelings and be assertive, and to really find your own way in life, not following mother or father. That's one thing that's been really big for me, is like, you know, I go my way, right? It's like I've never followed anyone. Yeah, my mom, like, is, you know she was an acupuncturist and shamanic practitioner for a while. She's not really doing that anymore, but she, like, I've gone, one sec. Hold on. Oh, my Zoom just disappeared. Hold on. Okay, cool. So, yeah, basically, as I was saying, it's like you have to get past this massive, it's like this huge bridge. But like now that you're in your Saturn return, um, the things like you like the tendency is like take 2 steps forward, take 3 steps back, you know? But now, so you build all this grit and determination. But now you're able to kind of take the 2 steps forward and not get kicked 3 steps back, and you still have all that, yeah, all that grit and determination without the setbacks. Um, so Moon Square Saturn is really difficult, right? Um, and it is linked to difficulty with self-esteem. So the person with that often, has, like I said, like a very critical mother. Um, and with Pluto there too, it'd be like a critical and kind of domineering mother. It's one of the more difficult aspects in astrology, I would say, because any like Saturn, the moon is it's just rough, right? So it can give someone kind of like a overly serious kind of very private, right? Self-controlled as well, responsible. But there can be some level of loneliness, awkwardness, but all of it depends on the early childhood, like how these energies manifested, right? Like if even with this chart, the parents, did um, make some crazy effort to make things the best possibly could, then it's not as bad, right? But there's so many other aspects in this chart that reflect that I would have trouble seeing um, how that would not play out. But like basically like the more conflicted and unhappy you felt as a child, the more likely you are to like suffer from like depression and have that like shame and guilt as an adult. A lot of people with this, like with the rest of your chart, like if your parents did get a divorce, they can feel like it was their fault, right? um and a lot of times like one or both parents failed to make like a real healthy emotional connection with you, which leads to like feeling like unlovable, abandoned, rejected, all these things, right? So yeah, whether it's a real or imagined kind of lack of emotional closeness, that has huge effects. As a Scorpio moon, the obviously the needs are so deep, right? So what so this is why it's so important is that at that critical stage growing up, if parents or just like whoever is in your life that's an authority figure tries to reach out and help, then self-respect can replace like destructive behaviors and feelings. This can have issues like create issues for love life because of the lots of reasons. Um, it can just make someone very very isolated, right? Um, and that can obviously lead to difficulty with emotional development. So yeah, it is it can make it difficult to make friends. Um, in relationships, there can be like a failure, a fear, not failure, a fear of abandonment before things even start, which can lead to some self sabotage. Um, so yeah, I mean, usually it just refers to like these are all extreme. A lot of these are like extreme examples, but like just a challenging childhood, you know. But like the input of like a very caring, self-aware person can really help develop that emotional life, right? Um, but with that said, like with Saturn, everything gets better with age. And the Saturn return is when things really mature. So you're very, very mature beyond your years. And despite these, you know, these early emotional struggles, you can be very, very successful in life. Lots of celebrities have Moon square Saturn, right? So, yeah. And then to have like Sun opposite Saturn, as I was talking about before, but it's just like, yeah, self-expression is really, really hard, and melancholy and low self-esteem, all these things, right? So, yeah, and relationships are hard. One until like that fear of abandonment and that purpose is found, it can be difficult, right? So yeah, it can make people like very impatient towards you growing up, like very demanding. And but what it does is that it makes the person like determined like determined to succeed. Um, and they're hardworking, persistent, you know, respected. And the key is to look at everything that's happened in your life up until now, have gratitude for it because it's gotten you to where you are now, and really, really do the work the Virgos can be very good at. Writing, I think, would be very, very good. Your moon's in the third house, which also is an indication of a very intelligent person. Pluto third house, people like they've just really like there's past lives where they were kind of fed information, right? Like of like what was important and all that. So like they're very determined to really go and learn the real truth on their own. They don't just trust people, right? But yeah, really challenging yourself is super important. 12th house is Neptune. So like one thing you can do is just like take your phone out and make videos of yourself, you know, like little vlogs. You don't have to show anyone. And that, you know, Neptune rules cameras and mirrors, affirmations in the mirror. These types of things are super good for your Mercury and your Sun, right? They heal you. So um yeah. Also, another thing, theme is like like issues with standing up for your own beliefs, right? So with the Mars and Libra, Jupiter and Libra, like you know that you just have to take advantage of that energy, you know, like that is like Libra is the counselor. Libra is the person that sits in the middle in that people come to, um, and you have all these placements of like what I would like want from like someone in any kind of healing field, right? So yeah, it's really endless, but it's just about like the only enemy is yourself. You know, the only thing staying in front is yourself. Um, so yeah. And then also Moon squares Chiron. Yes, you have all these, right? Um, so the Moon Pluto Hades Moon, it does create those extreme highs and lows, right? Um, so there is a need for like a creative outlet. There's a real need to whatever interests you to dive deep into that shit and just be obsessed, you know? And you have Jupiter's second house, which is like the financial guardian angel, right? So, and Mars in second house will make you kind of a hustler. So you'll be able to go after it, you know, like at whatever. Especially that now that this like I mean your Saturn return, it's happening, right? So it's like, you know, things are changing and you can feel them change over the next year ish, right? Or I don't know, year, like not even year, like yeah, like 6 months. It's been going for a minute. And then after, it takes time to really feel like how you were truly changed from that Saturn return, but you feel it. But I think a big thing for you is about being a service, right? Your vertex is conjunct your Saturn the sixth, so that would make you very organized. In Aquarius too, so it's like, you're very, and your Venus is in the 11th, so like, there's no rush, because like your greatest accomplishments might, they could come later in life. You never know. But like everything up until now was setting the stage. You see, some people and this is difficult because like people take on a lot of shame when like in their first 30 years they feel like they fell short in some way, and then they create stories in their head. What I'm telling you is that everything that's happened to you, and I don't even know your circumstances, that was meant to happen, you know? But now it's going to be a lot easier. Um, so with the moon, what was I going to say? Yeah, so there's tons of like Aquarian energy, even though there's no Aquarius itself, besides like the vertex in Saturn. But um, you know, what is this? Because the vertex is also, because it is where it is, that is very significant. Because that means that it has the same aspects, right, as as Saturn does, which Saturn opposite Mercury, opposite Sun, square Moon. So vertex, is very much about like your doorway to higher awareness, right? So to have vertex in Aquarius in the sixth, it's like your doorway to higher awareness through acts of selfless service and finding that cause, that humanitarian cause that makes you feel your best. And even Venus in Cancer in the 11th, it's like your friends are your family, your tribe is your family. You're very, and we'll talk about the love stuff in a second, but vertex, yeah, in Aquarius, um, it's an interesting one. Where do I want to go from here? So yeah, it's like you grow through developing true individuality, right? Um, Understanding that you're just different, and that you're here to be different. Um, so yeah. So a lot of like any energies or people that have been blocking you right now, or not right now, just in general, will start to fade away. And vertex with Saturn isn't bad. That seriousness and that sense of responsibility is an asset, but it's really being activated now. The key is because like you accept responsibilities willingly, and you're someone who can be very counted on, right? But it's like, do you value yourself enough, right? um because like with the whole human design thing, I don't know what your type is. um it's a lot of people are frustrated with their lives if they're um generators, like 70% of people, when they didn't accept the correct invitation, right? So we have like, let's say it's for a job or for whatever. It takes that, like in Libra has trouble saying no, right? So it's really about like kind of that Libra Mars transforming that into the Aries, right? And your North Node's in Sag is fire. So you're trying to become more fiery in this lifetime. And your only fire placement is your Mercury, right? So and it's in the 12th house and it's heavily aspected. So it's like finding your own voice is really, really like the key here. Um, and yeah, Moon square Chiron, it's a very close aspect too. It just speaks about like emotional wounds, feeling misunderstood by your own mother usually, or just in general. And you do learn to rise above your pain, and that leads you becoming like a very amazing healer. But still, to have Chiron and Saturn so involved, um, and also um, that's just it's very it just shows, right, that like Chiron and Saturn, two planets that also oppose each other exactly. That's super interesting that they're exactly opposed. Wow. Um, I never even thought of that of that opposition, to be honest. Um, I think like what I would think of would be how there's like your karmic responsibility, right? Okay, so here it is. It's like how you can balance out this Aquarian part of you that I'm talking about, this like being of service, all that, um, with this other part of you that needs to heal, that needs to allow itself to have fun, right? Um, so also it can speak to like just a struggle with any type of like authority or restrictions in your life. And once again, it's like, like overly strict or absent father tendency. And yeah, like it's very similar to lots of other aspects. Like there can be like a fear of rejection, themes of like hopelessness, and people, yeah, you could like repeat and repeat and repeat a certain like romantic tendency, and attracting partners who kind of mimic the childhood pattern or trauma that isn't resolved. So yeah, basically it just points like the need to like really face your emotional pain and do that in a very Saturnian disciplined manner. Um, and then that opens up Chiron, your hidden talents, right? That's what Chiron, your hidden healer talents. Um, and also your own natural sense of wisdom and authority, right? That's what's trying to be opened up. So it's very interesting. So how many degrees is that? So yeah, your Mercury, I would say it's right outside of the combust zone. So that's a good thing. So it's not combust zone, it's like right outside of it. Um so and they're in different signs. Okay. So Venus isn't badly aspected. It has a trine with the moon and a trine with Pluto, right? Or am I seeing anything? Am I missing anything? Let me look. Yeah, trine with the moon, trine with Pluto, the Scorpio. And then here nothing, here nothing. One could say it opposes the Uranus and Neptune. And let me look at the declination. So Venus is plus 20. Minus 14, minus 22. Mhm. The Mercury is parallel, meaning that their declination are the same. The moon. And then contraparallel between Saturn and Mercury. So Saturn and Mercury contraparallel, it's kind of like an opposition, but like they're already opposed. So it just kind of doubles down on that opposition being very, 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 very prominent, right? Not only in longitude is it aspected, opposed, but also, where they are compared to the ecliptic. So yeah. And yeah, so for Neptune parallel moon, that is interesting because those are not aspected in any way by longitude, but it kind of creates somewhat of like a conjunction, which speaks to your amazing empathy, right? And to your ability to just like psychic abilities, literally, right? But they have to be unlocked. So it's really your chart. It's like once you get past all this stuff I'm talking about, which is not easy, then like the doors that open up are insane. And the best way is to be doing something with your time that's Sagittarian. That's like so like with your career to where you're going in a direction that, and it's not just career, it could be like, you know, just your kind of like your dharma, to take a very spiritual path or to do something that's in line with kind of these energies. But yeah, that's interesting. So okay. So okay. Yeah, Virgo risings, like, I mean, come on, like it's just like I'm sure you know your rising sign. It is your chart's ruled by Mercury, which is in the 12th house. So it's like your Mercury is like locked up. And it's your job to unlock it. And so one of it is, part of it is getting through the Saturn opposition, right? Write down, what are my self-limiting beliefs? Why do I believe this? Where does it come from? And a lot of that will be linked to like the moon, um, Pluto energy of like, boundaries, like with the mother, like what have I taken on that's not mine. Um, so there's lots of writing you can do, right? Third house moon, it gives you like an emotional in Scorpio, like you are like you're someone who I have no doubt. Like if you were like besides your own, like if there is like self-confidence issues, who could be like, I'm gonna like just restart. I'm just gonna like go to school for this. Like you're very smart. Like you get that shit done. Third house Pluto does not fuck around. It can go deep, deep, deep and become very obsessed with what it's learning. Um, so also, the whole Scorpio moon thing, a lot of times some Scorpio moons, like sometimes the mother was like very stressed when there could be perinatal trauma around the time that they're born. Maybe it was an unwanted baby. Sometimes that happens. I just made a post about it. A lot of people were saying that, and just from my own experience with clients, like there's something a lot of times related to the mother, which could even have been like maybe a really difficult pregnancy, and maybe, yeah. So That's important. So how do I talk about everything? So yeah, moon. So okay. So I think we can we understand, right? We get what's happening here. That service going into the unconscious, all these things. Um, a lot of them are unseen. A lot of them are linked to past lives. Like that's what really needs to be tackled. Now, being a Virgo, like if we looked at it as a first house Virgo, it would be like, it would still make sense because it's like you're here to really it's like it's okay for you to be selfish in this lifetime, right? Like like in some you could say like you need to just live for you, right? You need to live for you. Now, another really cool thing that I see is the part of fortune right on the IC, and I feel this real like ancestral thing with you in your chart. And I think that by trying to garner like a connection with your family's tradition and all that stuff, that I think something happens. Like I think there's like something really juicy there, right? Where you at your best, your flow state is when you have this relationship, spiritual relationship with yourself, because it's conjunct your north node, right? Um, and you sort of like it does require going in back into the childhood, perhaps the past lives, because that's accessible in some way, right? I know it's easier said than done, but like past life regressions, that kind of thing. But like, you can even like use like what happened in childhood as a mimic, as a mirror for past life, uh, kind of because with the square at the nodes, like everything that's happened, all the really difficult part, you can just imagine that is just like a mimic of past life themes that are meant to be overcome. So Venus is trine Pluto, so that's really nice. That gives someone like a lot of commitment in personal relationships. Um, and it can make someone like very, very like have very, very romantic, intense, but not necessarily in a bad way, intense relationships, that very transformational relationships that take them to a new level. And Venus in Cancer, you know, um, there's a big need for like emotional security, just security in general. So most Venus and Cancer people, they'd want to have a partner that takes relationships seriously, where they can really, especially the Scorpio moon, there's a huge need to be able to express all your emotions. And then Mars and Cancer in women's charts, Mars often talks about like the kind of man they're attracted to. Libra, not like that you only be attracted to Libras, but it's conjunct Jupiter. So you have that conjunction there in the second house. But I think that speaks to just like wanting a very peaceful relationship, right? And then you have Juno in Virgo in the first house, or 12, yeah, but okay, we'll say first for that. Either way, right? It's in Virgo. So, your ideal mate is kind of someone who is understanding like all like who understands all that Virgo stuff, um who's can be counted on, right? Who's consistent, who's not like who's looking for something serious, right? But sometimes Juno Virgo can be always looking for that perfect partner, so that they have to make adjustments for everyone's imperfections, um but yeah, it has to be someone who has their shit together in some sense, right? um so you can feel also with that like first house, it would be like feeling very able to be yourself fully when in a relationship, but it doesn't mean that you have to be. Now with the Libra energy, Mars, you know it, in Libra conjunct Jupiter, it gives this big drive to want to be in relationships, right? um Mars conjunct Jupiter is very nice, right? Because it creates a very generous person, and it's actually good for self-confidence and luck. So with everything I've said about self-confidence, like what a blessing this is. And the financial guardian angel, I tell this to so many clients, it's like, they might lose one job and then like 2 or 3 weeks later they get hit up by their friend who's like, hey, I have like my company's like hiring and it's like a way better opportunity. Like it's basically whenever I see that, I always know that the person isn't meant to be like focusing on finances in this lifetime, in the sense that like when they're headed towards their north node, towards their like the more energetic stuff that I'm talking about, that they will be taken care of in that way, right? um so yeah, it's a nice one. It's good for travel and for taking risks, so that's really what you need, right? With your north, this is the aspect that helps out your north node the most. um and yeah, approaching life with like kind of like a gusto and just like a um Jupiter, in Libra itself. But like the thing is with Mars and Libra, it can give such a push to relationships. So you do have to watch out for like the codependency stuff, right? Of like taking too much of your identity from relationships, which in that sense, the first house sun would make sense because you're meant to like be a little bit selfish, because you're really trying to get down. And also like with Venus in Cancer and the fourth, note through the fourth house, I definitely think like family is like a big thing in your life, like trying to create a family of your own. But it might not be with the Neptune Uranus where they are, um, like the traditional type of kids or traditional type of family life that you create. But there is a real desire to develop a very expansive home environment that you can learn a lot from your home, maybe you work from your home. I don't know. But also traveling, is so important for North Node and Sag, experiencing different cultures. Um, so yeah, fair relationships are really important. Um, and relationships where you can express your spiritual values within the relationship. So we don't have to like hide behind the bush about what you believe in. So then the descendant is in Pisces with Pallas and Vesta. So um basically like you know the spiritual relationship, and it's trining Venus. So yeah, there's definitely like a water element to, I think, what you'd seek. Cancer, Pisces, and of course that Scorpio moon is going to need someone who they can tell all their secrets to and not feel judged. So I feel like with a Scorpio moon 20 degrees, I feel like at some level there needs to be some water. I mean, I'd imagine, but at least some earth, right? So Vesta in the seventh makes the focus on intimate relationships. Um, and it makes them really like want to work hard on their close relationships and making things work, right? Now Vesta is also about work. So in Pisces, um, you work best when your work is serving humanity. Um, and that goes with what I said before. And the work life can feel very overwhelming, even with the sixth house Saturn, which does add like a level of like organization to your daily routines. Um, it can feel a bit overwhelming and pointless unless it has like a real point, you know, that's related to all this stuff I've been talking about. So then Palace there, this in the seventh, it gives you this great wisdom, the point of like the counselor, of how people relate to each other. So it's really good. Like lots of counselors will have that. Um, but it can create difficulty sharing your feelings with intimate partners, right? I'll get into that in a sec more. In Pisces, that's like literally like Palace and Pisces. So many clients have it. It's like the third eye open, like just like that very meditative mind where you can just merge everything, um, with the universe, merge with the universe, your mind with the universe, and so forth. Um, so mm, yeah, okay, so it's not quincunx. Um, yeah, it also makes you want to really like heal the world through heal the world through your words. Um, and it's very good for like artistic expression. And these are both close to the rural star Fomalhaut. But I don't know about asteroids in Fomalhaut, but just know that these two planets are, especially Vesta, very close to it. So, um, yeah, our creativity would be a very, very good thing for you, especially with Neptune and Uranus in the fifth, as I talked about before. Um, that gives like a very strong artistic nature, where you create through your intuition. Um, so yeah, and then Uranus, it's like I said, like very like original and creative kind of schemes and hobbies. Um, so it can give very like just special kids, and even like very empathetic kids. But like I love seeing a fifth house in Capricorn, because it is literally what I think of when I think of someone who can turn what's fun for them into their work, which would be amazing. So yeah. Huh. So yeah, it's really a big part is like unleashing that Mercury, that powerful communicator that's within you through the third house. Also, siblings, there could be like power struggles with siblings. I don't know. I did mention at the start, but yeah, but also with the moon there could be like a big emotional attachment to them if you have any. Um, but yeah, it just makes you really need to like communicate with other people a lot. Um, but that can be difficult with all those oppositions and and squares and whatnot. But in Scorpio, there has to be like a profoundness and a depth to what you talk about. So not everyone can meet that. Um, so mhm, mhm. Yeah, so beautiful aspect, one of the best in astrology, Moon trine Venus. Um, it just makes one really good at achieving balance, especially with all the Libra energy. Pleasant, charming type vibe. So it actually adds a lot of it will remove a lot of that real dark energy from the Scorpio moon. I mean, it's still gonna exist, but when you have a 29-degree Scorpio moon, that's like as dark as it gets. But then when you have a nice trine from Venus, it adds some kind of harmoniousness to that emotional nature. Lots of creative talents, for sure. My gut tells me that you haven't like gone into them. Maybe you have, I don't know, that they're there. And if it's not that, it's just a real ability to appreciate the arts. So what I wanted to talk about, I'll finish. I'll say the last asteroid, which is Ceres in Taurus, which is kind of like a second moon, but not as important. So Ceres in ninth house in Taurus, it's like you nurture yourself by ninth house Sagittarius, acquiring knowledge and wisdom. Um, so it just, yeah, and you can look after other people by sharing and teaching your knowledge to them. You really love that, right? So you really feel like really, really like a deep attachment to that. And it's in Taurus, so that speaks to kind of like your Venus is in, Cancer, like touch. And when your loved ones give you a sense of stability and security, liking to be touched and stroked, as I said, in very nurtured in very practical ways, right? Um, so yeah, okay. Oh yeah, Black Moon Lilith in Aries in the eighth. Wow. So you need to really protect your energy. You need to learn about energetic protection. Um, Sometimes people with this like intimate details about their life can get revealed to the world that they would not want people to know about. Um, so you can attract like the kind of darker individuals. Um, so it's really important to have that to lean into the fire energy up, to really not be in that low vibe of Libra Mars, to be decisive, to be powerful, right? Um, so yeah, it comes down to like your own dark side, right? The challenge is to really face that and to really delve deep within it, which is all over. Um, some people with this um can play like, a game of like they can I just think it can just make someone run away from the work they need to do, the inner work they need to do, and they can blame others for like anything that happens at times in relationships. But really, it's like giving you this real opportunity to face your own, like, kind of, what your Scorpio moon's asking you to face. So in Aries, and remember, the Black Moon Lilith is like just a potential of you at your lowest vibe. Um, it typically um has to do with the potential for being overly pushy, which I don't feel it in your chart in any way, but just like um have to be first at everything. Um, so I think that, in the eighth house, I think that there's an element of like an element of so I'm trying to think of how the Black Widows and Aries would like make sense with everything else. But like, because usually like it's like the potential, yeah, to be kind of like that. And kind of like be like too competitive, too fierce, and just like win at all costs. But eighth house is about sexuality and Aries is impulsive, so maybe there's something there. um yeah, there could be something there where there could be like something related to like the like impulsivity related to sexuality. um but usually it's people who like have issues controlling their own anger. um So that's interesting you have it there. Um, Now I have an idea. I think it could also be repressed anger because eighth house hides things. So there could be this fiery energy which is linked to your Leo Mercury that wants to come out, wants to say these things, but then doesn't, right? Um, that kind of makes sense, right? And then it's opposite your Mars, which is very interesting, right? Um, Yeah, because if it's opposite your Mars, um, and your Mars is in Libra, that makes complete sense what I just said. Things bubbling underneath the surface, like, yeah. Um, hmm. I think he'd also be very rebellious. And it could relate to like the parent energy. If parents were like, very like demanding and all that, there can be like this big rebelliousness. Um, But I think in relationships it could link to like becoming very jealous and possessive when the insecurities get triggered. So so hmm, I think what can happen, and this is going to go to my next thing, is that it can create kind of a seesaw effect where you might be inclined to rebel against like the status quo, um, just to make a statement, right? But that can lead there can be like relationship problems that might come from it, right? Um, because like surrendering to the other, and that should be something you go towards, right? But it's about I feel like it's really around feeling disempowered, and the best way to like kind of integrate all this is to really really look at how, especially with Moon in Scorpio conjunct Pluto, take a deep dive into your understanding of your relationship with your own power, right? Because you need to be able to speak your truths. But sometimes I think with this, it's about timing, Now, yeah, so like really, really like power is really, really important because sometimes people with a chart like this, they'll, I know that you're a very spiritual person, but yeah, they'll take the power too far. So yeah, with Venus, like with it's like some someone call these oppositions, but they're like it's pretty much like 7 degrees. Um, so with Uranus and with Neptune, um, I think that speaks to a part of you that wants very stable like relationships, very close and all that. And another part that when it's like it gets too close, it's kind of like a little bit scary, a little bit like, I don't know if this is what I wanted. And with Neptune, I think it goes back to that kind of that need to really, really be not have the rose-colored glasses in love. Because Venus opposite Neptune, it can it can give a lot of unrealistic goals and expectations in relationships. So there's a need to like really, really not become disillusioned. So not like get your hopes up with kind of be able to like let go of things, A lot of times also, there can be like it goes back to like the low self-image when young, fear of not like being worthy enough, which is what Venus is all about, right? To actually have like a partner that you would want. So sometimes people with this will like make sacrifices to keep their ideal partner, but then end up feeling used or unhappy, right? Libra Mars. Like so it's like and sometimes people just can like fantasize so much or over idealize a certain person or partner. And then they get with the person and they date and they realize, oh, it's just a fucking human, right? So it's kind of like that Disney kind of energy, right? Um, so also you have to watch out for like any kind of financial schemes, like fraudsters, those kinds of people. Um, and it's all about like, yeah, like working on self-love, literally. And it goes back to like the thing I was talking about filming yourself, right? Um, but like the spiritual approach to life is where you can find the most self-love, right? Um, but it can also be through things like dancing, music, whatever, anything artistic. Um, you know, investing more in things that make you feel beautiful, right? Whether it's fashion, whatever. Those work good for those types for Neptune, Venus. But overall, having those two in any aspect is just like very, very good for inspiration, Neptune, creativity, Venus. So with the Uranus one, that's just what I was saying, like grass is green on the other side type energy. It can make a very unusual love life where there's like that need for stimulation. So that can be very difficult when you have all these other energies because you can get bored easy fast, right? Um, so yeah. It's like the need to find someone who keeps you stimulated, but then who's also like committed, right? But also to understand that you have that need for space in relationships, even if you do like to be really close, that when things get bored, you might need what I call the energetic reset to spend time away from that partner for a while. And yeah. Um, so yeah, a lot of people with this, there's could be some like sexual experimentation, curiosity at certain phases or whatever. Um, And with money, Venus opposite Uranus, you need to like definitely be conservative with money because there can be like a potential for like overspending, right? Um, there can, yeah. So yeah, so not getting into debt is really important. Okay, so let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Yep, 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 yep. Okay, let's see what's up with these. Any asteroids or fixed stars. Union conjunct Mars. Yeah, just lots of drive towards relationships. So just understand that like relationships are not like I don't know what your history is with them, but I've met people with charts like yours who have been in very few, and it's not because lack of opportunities, um, but just kind of like cutting people off too fast. So let's see. So Kuar is an asteroid that represents like the out of the box creativity. It's in the charts with lots of geniuses, Steve Jobs, I can't remember who else. Um, and you have it on your moon. So it can be like a creative genius, honestly. And maybe that you were just like very, very ahead of your time. Um, in some respects, right? And maybe like growing up that was difficult, and maybe there was even some jealousy, maybe even from parents or people around you, right? So yeah. um so cool you have your power fortune right on the IC. See, I would do some like kind of like meditations, like to try to like can like find them on YouTube or wherever. I've never really done this, but to try to connect with your ancestors and like try to like meditate on that. I swear, it's like so it's in your chart. And yeah, like a very distinct spiritual path. But there will be some risks you have to take with the Sag, maybe moving. I don't know. Like if you feel like you're where you're at is kind of a distraction, then it could be smart. So you have lust on the descendant. That lust just is very sexy energy. So yeah, to have that on an angle, it can create, you know, I mean my girlfriend has it rising and she's had like multiple stalkers. Um yeah. So on the descendant, it's a little bit different, but it's still prominent. And an angel on the descendant too. So an angelic kind of descendant is it is what we look for in others. So if you want to, but it's also like an angle. So it's like, you know, that spiritual union, like a sexy angel is your type. I don't know, but like also it's energies you have, right? With the stars at least and asteroids. So yeah, um, yeah, I would say that those two contribute to just an angelic kind of being that you are. And I know you are, and yeah, the lust. Um, I don't know what that would do on the descendant, but I know on the midheaven, on the ascendant, it's just very, very strong. Then you have Cupido on the midheaven, which is another really sexy one. Um, and Urania on the mid. Oh shit, this is big time. So Urania is the asteroid of astrology, and you have it on your midheaven. Cupido is more about like flirty. It kind of gives like a sexy Scorpio energy. Midheaven is like, how others see you. Yo, you might be meant to be an astrologer. Urania is smack on your midheaven with Rigel, which is a really, really, really nice star. Um, so yeah, that's very rare to see that. With everything I've said in this reading, like what if you were really meant to be an astrologer? And astrologer, it's very hard to have it be like the money maker. Like, you know, it's just tough. And I hope it gets easier in the future. I'm just telling you. But midheaven doesn't have to be just the career. I'm not saying you couldn't do it. You could do it if that's what your soul wanted. Um, I think it's become more prominent as years pass. And midheaven is, yeah, like it could even just be like a study of astrology and having that really, really represent who you are in the big picture. So and then Regel on the midheaven is very, very good for money, for business, prosperity in business. Um so and it gives like lasting honors, right? And lots of willpower. Um so yeah, like even with all the unhelpful aspects, it does kind of secure kind of success. But if the person who has this is not cautious or has like an attack of weakness, failure, disappointment, then there can be like a fall from success. But usually there's like a quick rise in life when you have midheaven with Rigel. Um, it's very glorious. It's a really, really good star. Um, it can even lead to fame or just um, yeah, it's really good. Um, so I guess let's see if I can find anything about Urania with the midheaven. Yeah, like governs astrology, astronomy, and cosmology. Yeah, she is the muse of astrophiles, space cadets, and cosmic connoisseurs, and is prominent in the horoscopes of astrologers and people who have a keen curiosity of the vast and mysterious cosmos. Successful astrologers always have a strongly placed Urania. So yeah, it's showing a list here. Yo, are you serious? How can you have Urania in a grand trine? Crazy. Let's see. Yeah, so you understand what it means. So okay, Urania conjunct MC. Career related to astrology slash astronomy or philosophy. It's the way how they earn money. Power over astrology, in parentheses, easy understanding, often seen placement in astrologers' charts, advanced knowledge. So it's at 16 Gemini, which is so yeah, there's nothing. I mean, your sun is very close to Regulus. It's just past it, but like, yeah, it's in Virgo. Which is, I don't know. I just feel like Regulus. Yeah, I mean, it's like a degree and a half past it. I always feel like past it, but yeah, still Regulus sun. I mean, I'm not gonna be as strong, but and then like the nebula is pretty close to your ascendant, which is all about like just like yeah, it's another astrologer, kind of like astrologer one. So that's really cool. Alphard is conjunct your Mercury. And is there anything at Regulus in Chiron? Let me see if I can find anything. Well, Sun conjunct Regulus, power, authority, great influence over friends, honor and riches, but violence, trouble, and ultimate disgrace, ruin, sickness. Here, don't worry about this fucking like statement. But it has to be really, really, really close for like the fame aspect of it. But it can just make you shine very bright. But then you are it is Virgo, so I think that I don't know, so close. Come on, Chiron, anything? Nope, nothing. And then finally we'll end here. I've probably been going on for 2 hours. Let me guess. Yeah, basically. Never keep them low, and it's like I have so many to do, but yeah. So Alphard is very musical, very artistic. So when you have Mercury there, uh, I don't know. Ernest Hemingway had it. So I don't know what it would do with Mercury, but I imagine that let's see, with Mercury, trouble through writing, unfavorable for marriage, suffering through passion attachment that entirely changes the course of life. With these old definitions, like I'm always just like, all right, I don't fucking know. Um, but it's very like artistic, so like why would it have that effect? I don't understand that. But either way, what a reading. Remember, let's move um towards Sagittarius and Urania on the midheaven. What a finding at the end there. Super interesting. So many themes. I think, did you get a follow-up? I can't. Let me take a look. Just the reading, yeah. So if you want to add the follow-up, of course, I'll give you a huge discount. If you want to add the current astrology, I'll give you a huge discount. But either way, um, I know that, you um, everyone is in their own financial situation and yeah, it's a pleasure. So I hope that this lasts you a lifetime. And yeah, um, what a reading. What a reading. All right. Ciao.